Greetings and welcome to another edition of The Pedal Shift Project. The Pedal Shift Project is a series of conversations, thoughts, and experiments around the bike touring lifestyle. From tips and tricks to ideas on how to ride your ride, let's shrink the world by bike. Show notes and more are available at pedalshifted.net/269, and you can email the show at pedalshift@pedalshift.net or text me at 202-930-1109 and check Pedal Shift out on all the socials as well. Hello, everybody, and Happy New Year. Welcome to another edition of the Pedal Shift Project. My name is Tim Mooney. Thanks so much for joining me here on the first new edition of 2022. And on this show, I am probably one of the last people in your life to talk about goals for the year, since we're practically halfway through January by this point, by the time you're listening to it, or maybe even later. Maybe you're listening to this months later and you're like, whatever, dude. But look, this is a good time of year to assess things. Calendar changes of the year, it's all very arbitrary, isn't it? But, it does work in a lot of ways for a lot of people. It's a good time to chart out what is to come in the next 12 months. And I am just like everybody else when it comes to all of that. I'm not big on resolutions. You'll notice that this episode is not titled Bike Touring Resolutions for 2022. They're really goals. Is it semantics? Yeah, maybe. But these are the things that I've got in mind for my bike touring that I'd like to see in the new year. And also just a couple of things having to do with the podcast as well, because those things are intertwined for me at least, and they may be to a certain extent at least for you as well. One thing that I think is important about all of this is there are studies that are out there. I wish I could cite to them directly, but I just know they exist. Just trust me, because I'm the man speaking on the internet box, so it must be true, right? That when you manifest your goals and you either write them down or, more to the point, tell them to other people, it is more likely that those things will come true, just because of a variety of different things that you're sort of you're challenging yourself by letting others know. And that's kind of my hope for this particular episode of the podcast. So I thought it might be a way to maybe get you to start thinking about your goals and what you might want to accomplish with bike touring in mind in the new year. So let me go through all of these. I think when I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, I got 7 of them, it looks like. And they're in absolutely no particular order. And frankly, they're not even grouped together in a rational way. These all just kind of came to mind as I was sitting here in the pre-planning process. So goal number 1 is a fitness related goal. That is to lose my 2021 weight and keep it off. This is something that I think, at least I'm attributing to, let me just open the book here, a little bit of post loss of Bell depression and not getting out and doing things, I think, in the way that I normally would. I wish that I had routed my needs into bicycling more, or maybe doing more hiking or those types of things. Instead, I think I drank an extra beer here and there, and I ate, really in an unmetered way, which is a great way for me to gain weight. So I think that one of the things that I've noticed over the years, and I mention it here on the show, is that it's really easy for me to gain weight and it's really hard for me to lose weight. So I think I put that towards the top of my list because it is in mind. I'm sitting down here about a week into the new year, and I've had some success with losing kind of the easy to lose weight. I tend to find when I'm at the point where I need to or really desire to lose weight, the first week or two ends up being really, really good because I'm very good at doing a variety of things to watch what I eat, do some more exercise, things like that. The usual kind of methods that one goes through to do that. And I'm going to actually be talking about this more in a future show, sort of how I'm going about doing it. So I won't go into too many details on all of that right now. But the idea here is that I was at a certain weight before the pandemic, and I'd like to get back to that. So I'm well on my way. It looks like that there is a good chance that that will be the case sometime in about 3 months or so, that I'll be able to get to a place where I'm much happier with where I'm at weight wise. And I think that it goes also with a fitness perspective as well. And I've got a variety of different things that I'm doing now, including I pulled out my trainer and I've attached the Goblin to that. And so I'm doing a variety of things around trying to get my fitness up. And I think that that's going to make a really big difference in how I perform from a bike touring perspective. One of the things that I noticed in my 2021 riding was that it was harder on me. And, at first I was kind of chalking it up to, well, I'm no spring chicken anymore, but I do actually think that my fitness level was not very good compared to where it's been in the past. And watching and doing some editing on the best ofs for that you just heard last week and you'll continue to hear for the next few months. It's just a reminder that when your fitness levels are higher, you're going to perform better. And so that's why goal number 1, fitness, lose the 2021 weight and keep it off. Goal number 2. I would like to revisit a route, or at least a portion of a route that I've only done once. And there are a ton of them that are out there. The Ohio to Erie Trail, the Katy Trail, portions of the offshoots of trails on the Great Allegheny Passage. There's a whole bunch up there, the Panhandle Trail and a few others that I've only really done once. I'd like to at least hit some trail that I've only done once and revisit it as part of some kind of a tour. That I'm looking forward to. Now, what will that be? When will it be? I don't know, but I'm just putting it up there as a goal. Now, I've got some other bicycle touring route goals in mind. And there may be a scenario where I'm able to check a couple of these goals off with one particular trip. One thing I would really like to do is to revisit a route or a portion of route that I've only done once. Okay, so that's a pretty easy goal. And why is that? It's to kind of break out of the rut that I find myself that I'm in. And I'm sure that you've noticed it too. It's sort of like C&O, Gap, Oregon coast. That tends to be a complete year. And I say, great, that's awesome. But I think I'd really like to find ways to diversify it a little bit. And that's one of the goals that I have for that. All right, are we up to 3? We're up to number 3. This is another interesting one that I just very recently came up with as a goal, and that is to think about a remote work tour option. And let me explain that a little bit. You'll recall from last year that Kimberly and I went on the big, gigantic road trip with the micro camper lacrosse and all of that. That was trying to take advantage of remote work, quote unquote, one more time. Well, little did we know that it was going to be another full year of remote working for the most part, for me at least, and to a great degree for her as well. And thinking that oh wow, we're running out of time. We want to take advantage of our remote work situation. Well, now as I sit here in 2022, my office, it looks like, is likely to have some form of modified return to the office beginning this April. And it's modified in a variety of different ways. I think that I would still have the ability potentially to do some remote work even after that point. And I kind of was in the idea of, wouldn't it be interesting to go back to a type of tour that I did back in 2014, which was the big, long Pacific Coast tour, where I was effectively doing some amount of work during that trip. I was gone for about 6 weeks or so, but it wasn't a pure unplug for 6 weeks. Now, I identified that there were a lot of downsides to all of that. One of the great things about a long distance and a long-term bike tour is to really fully unplug. I could probably do that if I took, say, a 2-week tour and just said, okay, I'm just completely unplugged and that's it. What I'm kind of interested in doing is going back to those experiments about kind of, working while I'm touring and seeing if there is a way that I can find that balance. Is it one of those things where it's work a day, ride a day to a new place where I work a day and then ride a day? Something where it's more like that, where it's like I really get to kind of extend a vacation time setup. do it someplace interesting, I found that I had a great deal of enjoyment working from cool places. And I go back to the trip that I mentioned with Kimberly. One of my favorite working, well, it was a week and a half, was when we were on the California coast and we were literally in the redwoods, and we had this incredibly remote cabin that had, for reasons that's still unclear to me, incredibly great internet access. That's kind of interesting and cool and fun. And, would I be able to find the type of tour where I would have the kind of riding that I would like, followed by entering into a town or a city or a location that had robust internet access, whether it was from tethering on my phone or from, hardwired copper line kind of a thing like what we had in California that one trip. So that's something that I'm looking at. And my goal here is not necessarily to do it, but at least to think about it, because I think that whether it's work ride, or something else, I think thinking like this is a good way for me to just find ways to diversify how I work and where I work. And I think that that'll make me feel a little bit better about the overall return to the office kind of a thing, that I've got things like this that can allow me to enjoy myself, be on a tour, but at the same time, do this in a way that extends my limited amounts of days off. So that's something that I'm at least wanting to see if I can construct. Where that would be, who the heck knows? But think about a remote work tour option is one of my goals. It is goal number 4. Did I get this right? Oh, you know what? It is number 4 because I forgot to do number 1. I said number 1 was fitness, but as I'm looking at this list, see, these are in no particular order. I guess we'll call this one number 4. At least one new to me route. And that goes hand in hand with the revisiting the route one, or revisiting a portion of one that I've already done. I'd like to do at least one route that I have never laid wheels down on. And one thing that I'm going to mention here is that I've got in mind, at least as I've been tracking the editorial calendar here, I'm looking at doing some more route scouting like I did last year around this time, except instead of hopping in a car and doing it in kind of a weird way like I did last time, where it was just one route, I thought what I would do is bring you along and look at some of the routes that I'm looking at as a potential new to me route. And I've got 3 in mind. Those are going to be future episodes of the podcast here in January, and I believe getting into February potentially as well. And I'll talk about which ones those are looking like, because I think I may make some shifts. But I do have at least a few of them that I'm really kind of interested in, that I would say as a new to me route. And then there's one that you could argue is new to me, and you could also argue that it's revisiting a route. So we'll get to that in a little while and in the next few weeks as I talk about it. So that is my 4th goal, which was originally number 1 on my list. At least one new to me route. That one I think is the one that is the most interesting one. And I think it's the one that I'm going to put the most effort into, at least here in the next few months, because I think that the odds of that being my spring tour is pretty high as I sit here right now. Now, don't hold me to that, because it may be something that I look at and I'm hot to trot about it in the spring, but end up doing it in the fall because something else comes along or there's other interest in mind. I try to be at least a little bit flexible when it comes to all of that. Okay, let's come up to the 5th one. This one is something that I feel like I've been trying to do for the last several years. So the goal is to continue to improve my stealth camping skills. I think that a sub goal of that is to just go out and stealth camp more frequently than I have been doing. At the end of last year, I was hot to try to do a stealth camp along the Gap. And as you may recall, if you were listening to the show, the weather conditions just weren't all that great. And also I had dog care situations and things like that kind of intervened in all of that. Now, I still thought that it was a worthwhile venture because what did I do? I went up the hill there on the end of the gap, the Cumberland end of the gap, and I did some stealth camping spotting. And I thought that that was really helpful. If I do some stealth camping, the odds of it being there at the end of the gap, pretty high. But I'd also like to look into doing that in some of the other routes that I'm going to be scoping out over the course of the next couple of months. I think stealth camping is a really good skill to have, whether it is for reducing costs for your bike tours, or more to the point, and I think that this could be as important as anything else, as an emergency backup for if you are running out of daylight, or you're bonking, or you're having some other scenario where maybe you had planned to go further on, or maybe the campground that you were hoping to go to was full or was otherwise inaccessible. You know, having some stealth camping skills in your back pocket, I think are really, really important. So I really want to make sure that I continue to improve those skills and the ability to spot sites as well. Many of you who listen to the show probably also watch, YouTube channels and things like that. There's one particular guy by the name of Steve Wallace, Canadian guy, who has an incredibly good show on his YouTube channel. Actually, I'm just curious because I want to see how many people he has who are subscribing. He has 808,000 subscribers. That's incredible. When you're over 100,000 subscribers, you get a little plaque from them. And there's a lot of YouTubers that get really excited when they hit 100K. Dude's got over 800,000 subscribers. So clearly resonates. I have learned a lot just by watching his stuff. Now, he doesn't always do it with a bicycle. He has, but he's done some really interesting things and a couple of things recently that I've done before. Camping behind a billboard. I've done that before. Lots of really interesting kind of methods and quirkiness to the way that he does it all. And I'll put a link in the show notes to Steve's channel. I mean, he doesn't need my help for promotion, clearly, by any stretch of the imagination. But that's one of the sources where I get inspiration and information. And I encourage you to check that out if stealth camping is part of what you want to do. Another one that I want to do is to repair or replace worn gear. As last year kind of ended, the touring season this past year in 2021 ended, I noticed that some of the gear that I have, some of the waterproof gear, I feel like is starting to get worn in a way that either needs a much more robust kind of once over with sealing tape and some other opportunities to kind of make sure that it is in good shape. There's a lot of pinholes that were in my panniers, for instance, that I used tenacious tape to seal up. Well, it works really well for a very long time, but over time it does wear out. And I noticed a lot of that was starting to curl up and needs to be replaced again. And also there's probably some additional holes in there as well that need some attention. I've got the event bags, the dry bags that I have. I think a few of them have some pinholes in it as well. I need to determine whether or not they're repairable or if they do indeed need to be replaced this season, especially if I'm going to be doing some bigger tours, especially if I need to rely on them. I mean, there's one thing that's really, really important. As I was revisiting my Katy Trail tour, how much I got hammered by thunderstorms and how much I didn't really care in the sense that I wasn't worried about my gear. Right now, I'm thinking my confidence in my gear is not nearly as strong. It's several years later. Those handy Ortlieb panniers, those orange panniers that you all know so well, they're kind of old. They're turning the corner to, I believe, 10 years old now. And while they are kind of bulletproof in a sense, they do wear over time. And I do need to make sure that those are going to keep the gear inside dry. So if they're not repairable, which is my preferred route, then I got to start looking into potential replacements for them. And, that wouldn't be the end of the world, especially for stuff that's really served me well over the decade. But, I just need to be on top of it. Another goal, this is, I believe, is this the 6th goal, 7th goal? I've already lost track how. I haven't numbered these. I should have numbered these. Organizing my bike touring equipment and improving my storage. I am sure I've mentioned this in the past, but I really think that this is something that I need to do. If only also to know what I've got. I think that I have some things that are, the extra bits of hardware that you get in certain types of gear, whether they are, lights or with fenders or things like that. And I tend to be a little bit of a pack rat with that because more often than not, I do find some use with those additional bits of hardware and things like that, but it does accumulate over time. Also, I think I have way more inner tubes that are good for my tires of my various bikes than I probably am aware of. I seem to find them all the time. I need to go through and do an assessment. Are they good? Do they need, are they patched up? Do they just need to be tossed? What do I have? Assess this and get this all into an organized type of scenario. Right now, I've got a variety of plastic bins between my two places that I tend to spend the most time, and everything is a little bit too scattered right now. So I need to make sure that I get things a little bit more organized. I need to assess what I want to keep, what needs to be tossed, and maybe what could be given away or sold or whatever. And then really improve the storage. And maybe, just maybe, if I want to be a super big Virgo about the whole thing, is to have some kind of an inventory system so I know where everything is. So I can just check on my phone or on my computer to know where all my stuff is, especially if I'm going to be kind of living this bifurcated life where I live between two places and my bike gear is in between two places. It'll help me plan a lot more so that I know, okay, next time I go to the cabin, I got to make sure that I grab this, this, and this, because if I'm going to be starting a tour from here in DC, I got to make sure I've got all of my stuff together. So being more organized about my bike touring equipment and improving my storage is going to be a real boon. If you were with me for the live show at the end of 2021, there's a big wardrobe thing that sits behind me. You may have noticed it. And it is literally bursting at the seams because I have so much equipment and stuff that's just sort of jammed in there. It's a lot of camping equipment and a variety of other things, some electronics and stuff. And I just need to go through it because I have to be honest, a lot of what's in there probably hasn't been touched for years, pre-pandemic years even. And I think that it might be time to say goodbye to some of that stuff to make that a better storage unit so it's not bursting at the seams for all of this gear. That's one of the things that I want to go through and make sure that I've got. Make it a little more organized, make it a little bit cleaner, make it a little bit better. It's just such a huge thing. If you're brand new to bike touring and you're like still working on building up all of your gear, this is sort of the opposite problem that you have. You're trying to get all your stuff together. Me, I've just sort of accumulated stuff through the years, sometimes with some experiments that it works. It's great. It's good to have as an option, but I don't use on every single tour. And that's where you just start to get into that accumulation mode. So organizing bike touring equipment and improving storage. All right. I've got one more goal for 2022, and this is the podcast related one. If you have been paying any attention to the increasing numbers that have been going with each episode here, you'll notice that this is the 269th edition of the Pedal Shift Project. Well, as it turns out, this year in 2022, and I'm just going to pull up my editorial calendar here. If everything goes as planned, the 300th edition of the Pedal Shift Project will drop on Thursday, October 20th, 2022. Now, I have talked about in the past that I am not a huge kind of celebrator of things and then at the same time, I did the big 100th episode thing, and I'll acknowledge, round anniversary episodes here and there, but there's something else that's also happening, and it may happen in and around that if I'm doing my math correctly. It might not be until later, and this is shocking to me. But I am this year very likely, assuming that the numbers continue the way they have been, will have the 1 millionth download of the Pedal Shift project, which is stunning to me. Yeah, it's been going on for a while, but 1 million downloads to me feels like a really crazy number. And so between the 300th episode and the millionth download of the podcast, I think that I want to have some kind of a celebration, and I don't know what that is. We've done some meetups in the past. I'm not sure if I really want to kind of spend a lot of energy for a meetup in these incredibly uncertain times. I mean, I think I will believe the move from pandemic to endemic when I see it. So I don't know if that's what I want to do. But I would be very curious what your thoughts are as loyal listeners to the Pedal Shift project. What would be an interesting way to celebrate 300 episodes and the millionth download? Is it something as simple as a live show? Is it, would people be interested in a meetup? What is it that would be of interest to you? Also, by the way, one of the correct answers is, dude, don't worry about it. Just keep making shows. We don't care. That is also an appropriate answer because, I struggle with these types of things. But anyways, a goal is to figure out some way to have some kind of a celebration for the 300th episode and the millionth download. And wouldn't it be interesting and funny if the millionth download happened during the release of the 300th episode? I'm not sure if the math works out on that, but I guess that's all up to you guys out there in the listening world. So anyways, I think that's a pretty robust list of bike touring goals here. Let's go down them. At least one new to me route. Fitness, keep that 2021 weight off, revisiting a route or a portion of a route that I've done only once, thinking about that remote work tour option, continuing to improve my stealth camping skills, repairing or replacing worn bike touring gear, organizing my bike touring equipment and improving the storage, and then last but not least, figuring out some way to celebrate the 300th episode and the millionth download of the Pedal Shift project. So that's a lot to chew on. What are the kinds of goals that you're working on? Think about those kinds of things and find ways to share that with your friends, with your loved ones. Because as I said at the top of the show, sharing goals like this is a good way for you to be able to achieve it. Studies show you're more successful when you share your goals with other people. So do that. Go about doing that because having goals, it's a good thing to have. And it's shooting for the stars and hoping you reach the moon. I think that's how that all goes. Well, in any event, thanks so much for continuing to ride with me here in 2022. We've got some really fun shows that are coming in the next few weeks. I have some of these already figured out, so I'll even let you know. Next week, as you're listening to this, we're going to be doing Winter Fitness and Bike Maintenance Pod, where I'm going to go into a little bit more on one of my goals, a little bit of accountability there. And then for the next several weeks, with a best of shot in there, we're going to do those remote route scouting options that I think are going to potentially check some of the boxes on some of my other goals that I mentioned here as well. So I'm already hard at work trying to attain these things that I just mentioned. So looking forward to sharing the rest of 2022 with you, and glad you're along for the ride. And as always, we like to close out the show with a special shout out to the Pedal Shift Society. Because of support from listeners like you, Pedal Shift is a weekly bicycle touring podcast with a global community, expanding into live shows and covering new tours like this fall's upcoming bike tour. If you like what you hear, you can support the show for $5, $2, or even $1 a month. And there's one shot and annual options if you're not into the small monthly thing. Check it all out at pedalshift.net/society. On to the society. Kimberly Wilson, Caleb Jenkinson, Cameron Lean, Andrew McGregor, Michael Hart, Keith Nagel, Brock Dittus, Thomas Skadow, Marco Lowe, Terrence Manson, Harry Telgadas, Chris Barron, Mark Van Rand, Brad Hipwell, Mr. T, Nathan Poulton, Stephen Dickerson, Vince LaGreco, Cody Florchinger, Tom Beninati, Greg Braithwaite, Sandy Pizzio, Jeff Muster, Seth Pollock, Joseph Quinn, Drew Porter, Byron Patterson, Joachim Robber, Ray Jackson, Jeff Fry, Kenny Mikey, Lisa Hart, John Denkler,
Steve Henkel, Miguel Quinones, Alejandro Aviles Reyes, Keith Spangler, Greg Towner, Jody Zaranin, Lucas Barwick, Michael Baker, Brian Bechtal, Reinhard Bigel, Greg Middlemas, Connie Moore, William Gothman, Brian Benton, Joan Churchill, Mike Bender, Rick Weinberg, Billy Crafton, Gary Matushak, Greg Latoile Lopez, James Sloan, Jonathan Dillard, John Funk, Ronald Paroli, Dave Roll, Ryan Hafner, Misha LeBon, Ari Messenger, David Grotke, Todd Grossbeck, Wally Estrella, Sue Reinert, John Lico, Stephen Granada, Philip Mueller, Robert Lackey, Dominic Carroll, Jackie McCullough, John Hickman, Carl Presseau, David Neves, Patty Louise, Terry Fitzgerald, Peter Steinmetz, Timothy Fitzpatrick, Michael Azuski, Hank O'Donnell, David Zanoni, David Weil, Matthew Sponseller, Chad Reno, Spartan Dale, Carolyn Ferguson, Peggy Littlefield, Lauren Allensmith, Eric Burns, Thomas Pearl, Darren McKibben, Richard Stewart, Dave Fletcher, Jack Smith, Luke Parkinson, and new to the society, Ryan Patterson. And thanks also to all past and anonymous folks for helping make this show happen. Thank you for joining. You can find Pedal Shift at pedalshift.net for more great bicycle touring content. You can hear the Pedal Shift project through Apple Podcasts or your favorite podcast app. Opening music courtesy of Jason Kent off his self-titled album. The track is called America. Check out his band Sunfield's latest release, Mono Mono, wherever cool music is available.